All right, it's the 3-minute rule. So welcome everybody to the eCenter's Startup Speaker Series. My name is Ian Grant. I'm the Executive Director of UNH's Entrepreneurship Center, known as the eCenter. I'd like to first thank our sponsor, Lake Street Advisors, who's been a longtime sponsor of the eCenter and of the Speaker Series. They are a Portsmouth and Boston-based wealth management firm, headed by also our Buddy Webb, who's on our board of advisors. Tonight's topic is young entrepreneurs, how passions led to the launch of their companies. Tonight's moderator is no stranger to the eCenter or this role as a moderator. Jerry Howard will be joining and moderating today's panel and making some introductions. Jerry currently is a founder and partner of Boston-based predictive branding consulting company. After a long stint in consumer branding, including global brand manager of Coca-Cola, so wide range of experience there. We will have a Q&A, so what I would say is in the chat section, we'll wait until the end, but if you put questions as each speaker talks or as they go through some of the Q&A in the conversations, please put those in and we'll call those out and try to get to them as many as we can. For those of you at I2 Passport, don't worry about putting in your username at this point. We're doing screenshots, and then at the end, we will probably have you put your name in towards the end just to make sure that you stay through. So appreciate your participation in I2 Passport as well. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Jerry to make some introductions and lay out tonight's format and go from there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian. Nice to see everybody. It'd be nice to be in the same room with everyone. We'll look forward to the day when we can do that again. So excited to have this Young Entrepreneurs session. I think there's some great stories and terrific insights for folks to hear. You guys hearing me okay?
Have Don come in.
Okay. You guys picking me up okay?
See, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so what we'd like to do first, just to kind of kick it off and ground the conversation. So we've got two really exciting businesses to talk about and the experiences that go with them. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of kick it off. And Geno, if you might go ahead and get started with talking about your business. Geno Miller is a young entrepreneur. It's on your screen there. I think you're on mute still, Geno. There you go. And so what we'll do is just love to hear a couple minutes background about your business, what your concept is, what's the value proposition, and then we'll do that for each of the businesses, and then we'll start into the discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, sure thing. 1 second here. I'm just trying to make sure my screen shares appropriately. Can you all see my screen here?
You might want to just do the presentation mode. Lower right, the little screen, third over from, yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. Perfect. Is it the middle one or is it the?
No, it's the one to the right. You had it. That one. Yep.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so first and foremost, Ian, as always, it's a pleasure, to be here. So many great experiences through the eCenter, and especially during these times right now. As young entrepreneurs, where so much uncertainty is already in, the startup world, with COVID-19 and all of those things going on as well, it's definitely an advantage and a benefit to have an organization and a resource like the eCenter to fall back on. So I appreciate and I, enjoy giving back and coming to these things and really providing some insight. So I appreciate everyone being here. My name is Geno Miller. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Study. And what we do is we help top Fortune 500 companies and tech companies, high growth startups, hire the best Black, Latinx, and Native American tech talent for their workforces. So you could kind of, the way that the company works currently, because it's been a journey. Our MVP type of model was sort of just manual placement, but now we have a platform. We're a software company, and the way the software works is it's a diversity hiring and skills matching platform that, number one, it vets tech job seekers of color with a coding assessment. Secondly, it trains them in soft skills and skills to help boost their experience in the workplace. And then thirdly, what we do is we enter them into our database and then connect them with employers who are interested in hiring them for their roles. That's a bit about the company and what we do. And right now, as we know, there's a lot of attention around social justice and providing equal opportunities to people who deserve them across the board, right? And that's where we come in. We make it easy for employers who are committed to improving these qualities within their organizations. We make it easy for them to connect with the talent to do so. So that's a bit about study and the benefit that we provide to the workplace there. Now, but who am I? That's really what I want to tell you about. It's definitely been a story and definitely been a journey. And as everyone here knows, entrepreneurship is definitely not for the faint of heart. So
Very true.
who am I? I graduated from the University of New Hampshire from Fort Washington, Maryland. I started my first company at age 14. I moved to Palo Alto, California in 2018 to continue pursuing study. However, we failed, we went broke, and I started a marketing agency essentially to pay bills and really learn how to grow the company. We swore we had it figured out leaving college. And I'm excited to, go into more about that later, about what that experience has been like. But it really was an eye opener. And that was a time where I had to look myself in the mirror and ask myself the one question every entrepreneur doesn't want to ask themselves is, what are you made of? And do you kill this now or do you keep going? So that was an interesting time for me there. And why study? Where are we now? I grew up in Washington, D.C. area. I had a lot of talented friends who had no way out. And I was a fortunate person to find a way out. So I realized that this was a great way to help people achieve financial freedom. So study is essentially that vehicle to do that. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but a tech worker makes on average 135K. The average Black family makes 60K. The average Latinx family makes 68K. So you can combine those two numbers and it's still less than one tech role. So the way we see it is we're providing opportunities there. Companies are spending $8 billion to try to solve this problem. Of course, COVID-19 is also forcing people to figure out remote hiring solutions. So long story short, we quote unquote restarted the company. Didn't fully kill it, but we restarted it in March of 2019. Now we're doing pretty well. Have a team of 6. We're launching our fundraise next week, and our goal is to get 10,000 candidates getting jobs through our software within the next year. So we're definitely on track to do that. And I just also want to let you know I'm here for questions. Of course, we have a long event. I'm super looking forward to it, but I'm here to help, so feel free to get in touch, and I'm happy to stay in touch with all of you moving forward.
Geno, this is Jerry. Just before we move on to Hannah and Christine, you talked about going to Silicon Valley and you thought you had it kind of figured out and things didn't work out the way you had planned. How did you make that decision? You talked about, keep going or kill it, which is brave and, a brave move. How did you make that decision? What were the things that went through your mind? Who did you talk to? What soul searching did you do? And congrats that you were able to, bounce back from that.
Thanks.
Love to just, because I think a lot of us face that. I have my own consulting firm, so I always wonder, when I finish a project, where's the next one ever going to come from? So we all go through that kind of thing. What did it take for you to keep going?
Yeah, well, really, a lot of stubbornness and pride, in a sense. Originally, when we had started the company, it was in college. I believe, a sophomore in 2015. That's when we had first been introduced to the idea of study. I had another co-founder at the time who I had grown up with. Essentially, I met him through football. And, we clicked. We always trained together, and you figured, we had big ambitions. So we started the company. But long story short, he took the corporate route. He ended up taking an intern product manager job at Tesla. And we're still, in, good communication. But I could very much see him veering off in a different direction. And what it took for me is to have the independence to say, am I brave enough to pursue this by myself? Or am I just going to stop here cold in my tracks? difference between me and other folks, I didn't have any other, like I was an entrepreneurial major, I didn't go into engineering or anything like that. Entrepreneur was what I was, that was my major. That's all I had. So this was plan A and B for me. So a bit of stubbornness and pride, but also the ability to sit back and learn through all of that too, of course, is what is really valuable.
And what were the big changes that you made? What did you learn from the first go round that you've been able to apply to the second round that's helped you succeed?
Faster is not always better.
Interesting.
I learned that it's very important to really drill down on the problem to a T, and very much find the core of that issue before just taking off and I guess raising money and going to the valley and doing all of those things that the that's glorified in entrepreneurship. I think the biggest thing with entrepreneurship is just taking the time to learn. And at this point now, the biggest thing that I learned in my company, with my coworkers, I just say my employees to tell you, I really much emphasize the build, measure, learn loop, collecting feedback, evaluating that feedback. Okay, what are customers saying? What are clients saying? And then taking that feedback and then making the correct changes to improve whatever process that may be, from the product to the sales process to customer discovery, customer support, things of those sorts. So just taking a step back and really taking the time to learn and get clear on the idea first.
And where did you go too fast, do you think, the first time?
Oh, well, I didn't realize I didn't know what I didn't know. And at the time, so Study was actually, before, it was a product called STEM Ready, and the word STEM, it stood for science, technology, engineering, and math within school. So that was just going to be $100 program, that we sell to students to fill skills gaps after they graduate, and between them actually getting a job. And that's fine. That's an okay business model. It could very much be effective. 12 weeks of training, sell it to their parents, sell it to the students, but maybe a couple $2 million exit, but that's okay. But the way I saw it is there's a deeper root to this problem. Why do people need to fill that skills gap? Why do companies think it's so necessary to have interim training programs to catch new employees up to speed? So those are the questions I started asking myself, and then when I realized companies were spending $8 billion to try to get this done, and only 9% of people in the entire industry were Black, Latinx, or Native American, that was a huge red flag to me. So I kind of dove in there, and now our business model has evolved because of that. So we're very much B2B now. So just getting more granular with the issue.
Great, thank you. So we'll come back to you, but thanks for that. Thanks for those insights. It's terrific. Christine and Hannah, love to get your guys' overview of your company, and I'm not sure who's going to lead that part of it, but we'd love to get your slides up and then talk a little bit about your company idea and how you got there, and then we'll probe a little deeper as we go.
Perfect. Well, my name's Hannah, and first I want to say, Ian, thank you so much for having us. We are so thrilled and excited to be here. I love what the eCenter does. I still have not had a chance to bring Christina there, which if we will come visit. But I remember when you guys got your first 3D printer, and I went and saw it, and that was really exciting. And I'm so excited for how much you guys have grown. And we're really excited to be in this space as well. And let Christina take it away.
Well, I'm Christina Firestone, and I am a co-founder with Hannah of our company called Julia Swim. Hannah and I met as kids. We used to ride horses competitively, and we grew up in that industry together. And when we both started to try to find our own independence, we fell in love with the ocean. And through that, we became really involved with sustainability because of the plastic pollution that we found in the ocean. And Julia was born from that. So I can let Hannah touch on a little more from there.
Yeah, so about 2018 is when we actually launched the company, and we came up with the idea to use a sustainable fabric because Christina and I, we wanted to design something. We wanted to create something that was ours essentially, but we wanted to create something that we used all the time, which was swimwear, because we were in the diving world, or are in the diving world. And we wanted to not only create something, we didn't want to just be another brand on the market. We wanted to be able to bring something good to this world. So we decided that we were going to do some research and see if we can find like a sustainable fabric, for instance. And Christina did a bunch of research, and we found there was one fabric at the time, and we found a fabric in Bali, a manufacturer. It was like the only eco-certified fabric with eco dyes and eco fabric, and we did all the research, and we had meetings and meetings, and we got like endless amounts of samples made. We would give our samples to our friends. They would help us tweak our designs. We would get the samples changed. We'd get the samples back. And then finally, we actually had everything ready to go. Basically, all we had to do was press the button on our wholesale order and we would launch. But we first had to convince our parents that this was a good idea. So we basically had everything ready to go. We talked to our parents. They finally were on board. They gave us a lot of pushback at the beginning because they were like, oh, there's no market for sustainable. You guys are crazy. Like, this isn't going to work out. And lo and behold, it's like the new big thing here in the United States, especially. But yeah, that's just kind of how we got started, and we launched in 2018, and it's been an insane ride since. We're about a year and a half in. And I mean, I think Christina and I can speak for Christina and I when I say that it's been probably one of the wildest journeys of both of our lives. And I think the fact that we are doing something good for the planet lets us stand out from the crowd, especially.
Yeah, and another thing is we wanted to make a company and a brand that was gonna make profit, but also we wanted to develop a brand that had a little more to it than that. So we try to use our social media and blog posts to educate others on sustainability, as well as we donate 1% of our profits to Coral Restoration Foundation in Key Largo, and they actually grow coral and plant them on existing reefs here in Florida to try to rebuild our reef system.
Great. So, okay, if I jump in with a couple of questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
So Hannah, you talked about it's been a wild ride. Give us some detail. What's been wild about it?
I think as a very young company, I don't think we expected to be a part of so many events so young. Just this January, we participated in Surf Expo, which is an invite-only wholesaler buyer event. It's placed in Orlando, and you have Billabong, Roxy, Ruka. You have all your big surf brands. Everyone is there. There was Chubbies. I mean, you name it, people were there. So for us to have been able to get this invitation for this, it really solidified what Christina and I were doing, was actually making noise, and that we weren't just doing this to give ourselves a pat on the back. Like, people are starting to notice what we're doing, and a movement is being created behind this. And I honestly think that's been the craziest journey, and I'm excited to see what else we can accomplish together.
How did you crack into such a big branded event like that? That's terrific.
I kind of got a little ballsy, and I sent emails to anybody I could find with the Surf Expo handle. And finally, after like 6 months of trying to get in touch with somebody, they kind of were just like, sorry, not this year. And then last minute, I think we had like a month to prepare for this. I got an email saying that we were accepted in a Surf Expo. Here are the details. You have to sign up by like this week. And we had to get everything ordered. We've never done a trade show in our entire lives. we didn't even know, like most people hire construction teams. We showed up to the event and Christine and I are walking through this giant warehouse and these guys are driving and like honking at us in their forklifts and they're like, get out of the way. And we're like, what's going on? And then there's just little Christina and I like with our drill gun assembling our booth, just us two together.
Great. Well, that's great. What it turned out.
Yeah, it was a great event.
So Christine, you know, one of the things that I think when you and I spoke that to me is intriguing, you guys are hitting a bunch of different you're hitting a bunch of different trends at the same time. You're hitting sustainability. You know, you found a consumer need, but you also have kind of a functional area that because of your diving background, you guys are designing the product in a different way than other bikinis, as I understand it, other swimwear. Could you talk some about that?
Yes.
I think it's got a lot of dimension to it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so Hannah and I are both very active scuba divers and free divers, and I actually have worked in the scuba diving industry for about 2.5 years. So I was in a wetsuit and a bikini every day for work. It was my uniform. And a lot of, when you're in a wetsuit all day for hours on end, a lot of different bathing suits get very uncomfortable under them, especially ones that you have to tie in a knot or that are bulky in certain areas. So we really took that into consideration into the design aspect of our bathing suits. So all of the material is extremely soft and the seams are very, very slim, so they don't dig into your skin under a tight wetsuit or anything like that. So they're very comfortable and they're made for somebody who wants to be active in them or wear them under a wetsuit. And they're also fashionable as well.
And how much of your proposition do you feel that is when you're, you know, when you're looking at what's selling? You know, what customers, do you feel like customers are coming and looking for that? Are they looking for something specific like that feature, or are they looking more generally? And then you close them with a feature like that.
I think a lot of the times people look more generally because they're not used to a brand really thinking about that aspect of the swimsuit. So a lot of times people who do wear wetsuits a lot might go into a shop and look for a swimsuit that doesn't tie or doesn't have clasps on it or something like that. But we benefit from it because when we're now doing wholesale, we're getting into dive shops and surf shops that have that customer shopping at their shop a lot. And they really do like that aspect, and it's helped us market our pieces.
Yeah, so I guess just as an old brand guy, for me, that one of the things I think is really great about, you know, both businesses that we're talking about is you have a number of different points of differentiation, and so then you map that into the channel that you're talking about. You know, if you're in a dive shop, I wonder then if the folks in the know, you start to get word of mouth going on and this thing goes a bit viral for you. Are you seeing that at all?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if Hannah wants to touch on this, but.
Sure.
I mean, I think for me specifically, I feel like in the diving world, I think things kind of spread like wildfire in an instance. Once everybody finds out about it, everybody wants it. And we have a few collaborations actually coming up our sleeve that we're getting ready to launch hopefully in the next few weeks with a girl. Her Instagram name is Shark Girl Madison, but she started a project in Indonesia where she convinced shark fishermen to stop shark fishing and start using their boats for tourism. And so even through COVID, she's done fundraisers and created products and sold things throughout COVID and quarantine to help these fishermen not have to go back to shark fishing. So we are partnering with her and we're coming out with a limited edition bikini. We're only coming out with 200. The design's top secret, so I can't give any on that. But we're also going to do a mask and a scrunchie that will also donate proceeds to her and her organization. So things like that, we keep partnering and working with amazing girls and girls who have strong voices in the diving in the conservation world. So I think once people realize that we're not just another brand, we're not here to make a buck, we're here to actually do something good for the planet. And I think that people see that now. And I think that makes a big difference in why we've been able to scale as we have so quickly.
What's her name again, Hannah? What you said, Shark something?
Shark Girl Madison.
And when you were getting started, and Christina or Hannah, either of you, feel free to answer this. When you guys were getting started, how did you get feedback from customers? How did you validate your ideas, improve upon them? What kind of process did you have to do that to kind of check in with the audience out there?
Yeah, the process for us was pretty simple. I mean, we knew what we wanted to do, and I think a big thing that's beneficial is surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So a lot of our friends and people who were encouraging us are part of the industry or in conservation specifically. So they really helped us with ideas, and we could bounce ideas off different people, because a lot of different people that are in the conservation world have different strengths. Some like sharks, some like the coral reefs, so they all do kind of different things. And also we were able to have a bunch of different girls and women try on our swimsuits and wear them, and not only just wear them, but work in them and tell us how they feel about it, if they feel comfortable or not. And we tried to get as much feedback as we possibly could. I mean, we had everybody we knew in our swimsuits at the beginning. And also we used them for help on the conservation side of the brand as well.
And kind of picking up on that, maybe, was there a point at which you got some feedback that was maybe not so great and you had to make some adjustments? And, if that was the case, what was that like for you?
Oh, of course.
We've come out with our one piece, actually. We got a lot of help from our freediving instructor, and we were actually in the Bahamas getting our freediving certifications. And I just, out of the blue, I was like, can you try this on, dive in it, tell me what you think? And she's a mom, she's in her 40s. And she was like, gave us some really harsh feedback. She was like, I like what you're trying to do, but this is what I think you should fix. And it was like a 25-page long list of things that we should change. But it was kind of disappointing at first to hear that, and because we were so sure on everything else. So getting something back that we just wanted to, really design something great, and we got bad feedback, we were kind of bummed, but the final product was so much better. So now when we get feedback on our samples, we're like, okay, we'll try it, see what happens.
So staying flexible, not taking the stuff too personally, although that's hard to do when it's your idea. What do you think has been important for you guys to kind of keep upbeat about things when things get tough?
I think the biggest thing is surrounding yourself with people that are encouraging, but also not afraid to tell you to help you grow as well. It's equally as detrimental, I think, just to surround yourself with people that praise you all the time and say it's a great idea. I mean, you need people there to tell you when doesn't come across to them how you think it's coming across, or things like that. And also ask for help. You would be amazed about how many people that you might not think could help you, or maybe a relative knows somebody in the industry. You never know where you could get help from. So to always reach out to different people. And as well, I know for us, a big issue we faced was people not taking us seriously as young entrepreneurs starting our own company. And at the beginning, it was a little nerve-wracking, be able to stand up to somebody and say, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm doing. And some people would think, oh, okay, good luck, it's not really going to work out, kind of thing. But I think if you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, you can take yourself a really, really long way.
Great. Great. Well, maybe let's, if we could, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that overview and then all that insight. Geno, if we could pop back to you. Just thinking about study and what you're trying to do next, you know, as you think ahead, you've got a team of 6, as you said. You've got revenues coming in, which is great. You bounced back from your your tough period in Silicon Valley. What's next for you, and how do you think of kind of the stages of building the business up?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So we are in a predicament now where we have a ton of demand coming in. So that's one angle. So we're thankful for that. But on the other hand, we have a ton of demand coming in. So that means we need to make sure we have the resources and the infrastructure from a human standpoint and just a financial standpoint to keep up with that demand. So right now, the next step for study is we're going into a fundraise coming up here actually next week. We're launching an event with a couple organizations to really, I guess, continue to put Study's name out there in front of the public eye. And then from there, come November, we're really going to hit the ground full throttle and booking, and pitching investors and things of those sorts. We have tons of investors right now who are interested, which is also good because they, the way investors think, of course, is they're looking at the trends and they're looking at what the future looks like. And with so much air of question and, what's going on right now, from COVID-19 to social justice and things of those sorts, we're at a fine intersection to where we kind of meet at a nice point between those two things. Helping employers hire remotely and also, of course, increase diversity within their workforces. So we're fortunate in that regard, but coming up, definitely the fundraise very, very soon. The platform is also releasing within a week. This is going to be our first public demo of the platform. So we're super excited about that. The next 3 months is just really a grind phase, and of course, always sales, so that's how we help people.
So you talked about you got a lot of demand right now and a little bit of maybe risk that you're growing too fast. That might be interesting for the group to hear about. It sounds like a nice problem to have, but it could be a problem, I guess, if you outstrip your capabilities. So maybe talk a little bit about that. How do you kind of titrate that growth so that you're on that trajectory you want to be on, but you're not growing so fast that you don't deliver what you promise?
That's a really good question. So what we're doing right now is I'll just be very transparent. So we have about 57 companies in our pipeline or so, in our sales pipeline. And because we work with larger organizations, typically the sales timeline is a bit longer. So it may take a month to 2 months a lot of times to, close a deal with a new partner. So rather than engaging all 57 at one time and then waking up, 8 weeks from now and having 57 customers on the same day, we're really focusing on a core group of companies, clients that we're working with closely. So we have about 10 companies right now who we're really focused on placing the top talent, building those core relationships with them, and just really helping them get their workforces to where they want them to be. Also that way we can make sure we work closely with them so we know we're placing our candidates in a healthy environment too moving forward. So that's really what's important from that aspect. But that's really what we're doing. We're just zoned in on about 10 companies and really just taking care of them. And then when the platform launches, that'll enable us to, help a lot more folks at scale. They should be able to hire, by just clicking and adding people, and we can kind of do it that way. So yeah, just really narrowing down on who we focus on right now.
Great. And if I could, I'm going to go way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
You talked about that there are only, if my notes are right, I think you said 9% of people of color in the tech industry today in professional positions, and just roughly speaking, that would represent 9% versus maybe 30 some odd percent of the general population. So.
Right.
So what, maybe about a third to a quarter of the representation that you would want to see on a fair share basis, right? What and I think you made the point to me on the phone. Companies want to solve for this. Obviously, folks looking for jobs want to solve for this. What's been the barrier, and how is your company helping solve that barrier?
Yeah. So outside looking in, and also kind of why I had, a bit of fire lit in me to figure out why there was such a disconnect. Outside looking in, it could seem like, companies just don't want to hire people of color or people from diverse backgrounds. And I mean, yeah, everyone's human, so everyone has their, opinions on that. But when we really dove into the issue, and specifically when I had taken that trip out to California and was talking to different leaders in the space, such as Tesla and Code 2040 and Airbnb and different organizations like this, I learned that they're actually doing a lot in their power to try to find diverse candidates, and specifically tech talent. But they didn't have a reliable pool to go to. They didn't have a reliable database that they can go to because their current processes are what? They go to the top universities like Yale and Harvard, just like everybody else. And then they go to HBCUs for tech talent of color, just like everybody else. They go to career fairs and conferences. So that turns into a feeding frenzy for the top employees or the top candidates. And on top of that, most of the diverse candidates aren't at the Yales. I know we're at UNH now, and most of the friends I grew up with aren't at Yale and Harvard, but they may go to a more specialized technical school or something of those sorts. So really what that told us is companies wanted to hire folks, but when they did hire them, they didn't, or when they did find them, they didn't know how to sort. They still had to source and qualify them and things of that sort. And on top of that, how do they know that they can go back to that place every single time, essentially stick their hand in and pull out every time and have what they were looking for, So that's kind of where study came in. And on the other side with candidates as well. Candidates, of course, dream of working for these companies. A lot of my friends come from low income communities. And, I'm not too far from the hood myself, being born and raised, So that told me that what if there was a platform to where they can adequately showcase their skills to the companies and employers who want them? So that was a really good question, but
yeah,
that's
so
really
that's cool. That's really interesting. So if the bias is there, and I've done a fair amount of work in Silicon Valley, and they definitely have their mindset about the world of Stanford and so on, and Berkeley, and really for all hires, not just hires of color. So how did you? If I think about that, that's a pretty strong inherent potential bias that hiring managers might have, kind of a snobbery, but it is out there about the Ivies or Stanford or the HBCUs. How did you start to convince them that you had the talent pool from these different sources? What got them to kind of take notice?
Wow. Yeah, my Jack, who's my chief development officer, we kind of have a joke. He always kept telling us, look, let's really just focus on bringing in those first few sales. Let's focus on bringing in those first few sales. And that's what that's really what it was. Large corporations, a lot of times they don't want to be the first one to pull the trigger, but when they see another company of their same size or especially a competitor pull the trigger, then it's like everybody wants to jump on board, you know? Really it was getting those first few sales and proving ourselves as a credible source for talent in the space. That's really what helped things take off. And we've also had some really good press too. You know, so big thing is just credibility, because there's a lot of platforms out there that can, you know, like job boards and LinkedIn and things like that where people can get jobs. But how do you know that the candidates are actually qualified, you know? So it was really just making a name for ourselves in the space and just being known as a reputable source. And we're on the right track. And partnerships, that helped a lot too.
So those first couple of sales, any tips for the rest of us on how you were able to close those first few deals?
Practice. I know it's cliche, but practice. Like, it was just repetition. And confidence, really. Know that you have the best solution out there, regardless of what it is, even if you don't fully believe it yet. Find a way to at least radiate that confidence, because it's contagious with folks who are looking desperately for a solution. So just keep in mind, whatever sales call you're on with a prospect, they're talking to you because they have a problem and they're hoping that you can fix it. You know, so with that, they're looking at you not as a salesperson, but you want to take the perspective of as a consultant. You know, you really want to ask questions. You don't want to throw your product features at them. You really want to get an understanding for what their needs are. So, for example, like if I'm on a client, like we just closed a Fortune 500 client not too long ago, a couple of days ago, and you know, I'm asking them. Thanks, yeah, and that, you know, everyone in here can do that, but really, what it came down to is, you know, what are they looking for? You know, what roles are most urgent for you to fill right now? What is the most pressing issue that you're having while filling that role? What other solutions have you already tried to fill that role that hasn't worked? Which ones are working? You know, just really get an understanding for the problem, and then very much streamline that solution to them. So,
so sometimes that might mean coming back to them on a second, you know, using the first meeting to understand those needs and do a needs assessment like that, and then coming back to them later. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly it. Most of our, it takes at least, it's taken 3 calls for us to close most of our clients. Some it's taken 4. But yeah, it definitely takes more than 1 call. And I also advise, don't be too pushy on that first call. Just digest info as possible for a high ticket.
And last thing for you for now, and I think we need to leave time for questions here, and I want to get back to Christine and Hannah. So one of the things, just to point, I'll point out to the folks on the call, you've got 2 very different selling situations where, you know, Christine and Hannah are selling to consumers. And I'd love to hear more about your retail channels, actually, Christine and Hannah, when we come back to that. And then Geno, you're doing what I would call enterprise selling, which typically means you're talking to probably several different people inside the same company who have a different role in the decision. Is that fair to say, Geno?
Yeah, it's very fair to say.
Do you go in through HR or human capital, or who are you talking to first?
Yeah, so usually it starts with HR, usually the head of technology or head of technical recruiting will come across us in some facet, a lot of times through LinkedIn or just reading about us in press articles like Boston Globe or Business New Hampshire magazine, you know, features like that. And they'll reach out and say, hey, you know, I have these roles I'm trying to fill, and I've really been struggling trying to find people of color who are qualified to fill these roles. Can you help me? So typically it starts there. Then from there, that's that first get a sense of, you know, what you're looking for type of phone call. And really that's when the relationship building starts. And then from there, they kind of, I collect their job descriptions after that, so we can go ahead and start trying to source people for the roles that they're looking to fill. And then in that meantime, they typically connect us with their head of HR or even, you know, a CTO or someone like that, CFO, a decision maker, and we'll hop on that second call. You know, and then from there, third call is usually the close. Sometimes 2 on a good day, sometimes 4 if it's a little longer, but that's typically how it works. and then there's a lot of back and forth with legal paperwork to, you know, get that stuff situated. So
And again, just for the rest of the group, so, you know, when you're doing enterprise selling like that, you know, you got to be strategic, Geno, I'm sure, about when you're talking to the head of talent acquisition within HR. They have a certain agenda. The chief technology officer is going to have a
yes,
somewhat different agenda. The chief financial officer is going to have a somewhat different agenda. You need to understand all of those, right? So mapping, I'm imagining you've got a giant whiteboard somewhere with dry erase markers and
right in the other
mapping,
room.
right? And mapping out who those audiences are and, you know, what their motivations are and what you need to do to win them over. Because some folks, you know, my former life, we used to talk about someone like the HR, they may be the technical buyer, meaning that they have to qualify that you're good at what you do and you can get the job done, but they're not really the people going to make the decision. And maybe
Right.
the CTO is the one who's making the decision.
Yeah,
And then the CFO probably is the one cutting the checks. So they have to at least believe that they have to at least be, they're going to ask the CTO and HR whether this is a good move or not before they cut you a check.
that's exactly it. That's
So
exactly it.
I just lay that out because, you know, we think about marketing and selling. Enterprise selling is very complex. It requires a lot of strategic thinking. And Geno, I think you did a great job talking about kind of how you do a needs assessment. So I don't know where you learned to do that so early on, but that's great. That's really exciting. Anything else, Geno, you wanted to talk about at this point? I'll kick it back to, and then I do want to check in with Ian since we're remote here, how we're doing on time.
Plenty of time.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I hit some really good points. I just want to piggyback a bit on what you just stated there, Jerry, about um the motivation behind why everybody in the company may be speaking with you. So a technical recruiter like Jerry just said is looking for, you know, can you help me find people who are qualified to fill these roles? Do they have the skill sets? Do they have the soft skills as well, the communication skills as well to fill this role? The CFO a lot of times is the one who needs to make sure that everything works out financially. If it's a larger company, a lot of times it'll be a procurement agent or, you know, someone who is in charge of approving different buying purchases on behalf of the company. And that's where the paperwork engagement and transactions can kind of take a bit more time, hence why it can take a month or 2 months a lot of times to, you know, get things locked in. But I just, you know, want to piggyback on that and say the size of the company does make a bit of, you know, difference in who you may be specifically speaking with and what they're looking for out of the conversation.
Yeah.
Just to shed some light on that.
So lots of research before you get in there. Probably checking out the individuals on LinkedIn and
Yeah,
looking, you know, where were they before they were in the role they're in now, and as much as you can glean before you get there. Good.
exactly.
Cool. So Hannah, Christina, same kind of area I'd love to get into with you. What's next for you guys as you think about, and I think it was Hannah saying this before, but I'm not sure. You talked about scaling the business, and you haven't been at this very long, but you're already thinking that way, which is terrific. What's next for you guys? What do you see as kind of tent poles in your development of the business as you're going forward? What's next for you?
So right now our new line that we're coming out with is actually going to be based all fully plastic based fabric found from ocean debris. The material will be made in Colombia and manufactured in Colombia. So we're cutting down not only on our carbon footprint, but by like shipping the fabric and then getting it developed and then sent to us. That's a lot of maneuvering for a bikini. So by making the fabric and producing it all in one place, we are going into a sublimation process, which basically means so when you dye something, it's not truly eco-friendly unless it's a vegetable dye. And
Mhm.
you can get the ECKO certification for a eco-friendly dye, yes, and there are ones that exist, but there is no true like 100% eco-friendly, like all natural earth friendly dye. So while using a sublimation process, you don't dye the fabric, it's literally just screen printed on, like a t-shirt screen printed, how it never fades.
Mhm.
So we're pushing into this new process. So we're cutting back on things that we didn't even realize weren't technically considered sustainable in the beginning. So we're kind of taking a moment and like trying to grow with the times as well. And by switching to this plastic based fabric, we're able to, evolve with this whole revolution as well. And I think we have a lot of really interesting and unique ideas for new like swimwear coming out. We really want to come out with a men's line, and hopefully like down the road we'd really like to do a partnership with some of the bigger conservation organizations out there. I think that would be like an awesome end all goal, as well as expanding into different clothes and just trying to really open people's minds that you don't have to do drastic things to be good and friendly to the planet. It's one step at a time. It's a reusable water bottle or a bamboo toothbrush. And it's
Mhm.
one thing that creates that snowball effect. And that's really our goal here, is to create that snowball effect.
Great. And Christine, any builds that you have on that? Things that you want to see happen next?
You're on.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
No, that's the problem. I only do
Um,
that about 10 times every day on Zoom, so still haven't figured that out.
So she covered most of it. I mean, Hannah and I work really closely with each other. We have a really good relationship, so we both share a lot of the similar goals and want to see the company grow. We definitely want to be as eco-friendly as possible. It's not always 100% possible, but as much as we can do, we would like to, and that's the biggest thing we stand for as well. Like Hannah touched on, a lot of people push that if you're gonna be eco-friendly per se, that you have to never use plastic and I mean, grow your own vegetables, things like that, but you don't have to. One simple change in your life can make a difference. So that's the biggest goal for us, is to push that.
And
that's,
just to touch on that.
please.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say real quickly on that. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Just really quickly on that. I think that's an important insight, Christina, that you're raising, that you're on a journey, and that gives you license to talk about the topics that could maybe open you up to criticism, right? If you don't get something quite right. So that idea that, I used to work with a guy who would say, sometimes you got to run into the ambush. And it sounds nonsensical, but it actually works sometimes. So this idea that you're on a journey and that everything's not going to be perfect from the get-go, but you are making, you're making a contribution relative to what other apparel items people would be buying. And those are all steps forward, and that you're continuing to improve. And in my work on brand strategy, I found that that's been a really effective way, particularly when you have a strong positive ethos like you do in your proposition, to kind of give yourself some time and to not necessarily put a target on your back, for some of the groups who might, come after you. Obviously, you've got to, it's got to be authentic what you're doing. It's got to be real, but also recognizing that, Rome was not built in a day. And I say that for the group. Hannah, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to kind of go off what you were saying. Like,
yeah,
Yes, Christina and I are trying to evolve as well in this eco-friendly world, but we're also trying to involve the company. So an idea that we had was all of our scraps from our designs, we turn them into scrunchies, headbands, and bags. So just trying to figure out ways that not only can we change, but can we hold our company to the same level we hold ourselves to every day, and what can we do to not only make ourselves better to this planet, but our company as well.
Great. Great. And the other thing I will say, and then Ian, I think we want to go to some questions, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the last thing I want to say a little bit about what Hannah and Christina have been talking about. And this is a big trend in marketing, branding, and business today, which is, being purpose driven. And I think, everyone can hear, and Geno is doing this as well. The idea that, there's a great YouTube video from years ago talking about people buy the why as much as the what. And I grew up in an era where we were really always talking about the what. But I think there's a lot of times that's hard to differentiate yourself. So the idea that you've got a strong why that is motivating to the audience out there, that eco-friendly footprint. Ocean plastics is a huge, issue. I think that's increasingly known by people, even if they're not necessarily divers. And so that conception of the brand then becomes a lot bigger than, hey, we're in the swimsuit business, because you've talked a couple of times about building a movement and, talking to other partners. And I suspect you would not have gotten into the surf, the surf event that you got into, the trade show, without that bigger idea, that bigger concept. Mm-hmm. So, how you conceptualize a business, whether you're just really in the swimwear business, which maybe when you first talked about it with some of the folks who were a little bit skeptical, maybe that's what came out. But what I hear from you guys is, yes, we have a product that manifests in swimwear. It's got a very strong ethos to it, and purpose behind it. And that enables you to have a lot of different cool partners who can extend your brand and get the word out. Am I capturing that reasonably well?
For sure. I mean,
okay.
We've been able to partner with other companies that are eco-friendly. We have one that makes water bottles out of aluminum, and we have another one that's a reef-safe sunscreen. And we've been able to grow our footprint by using them, and we'll share platforms. We'll take photographs with their products or do giveaways on social media, and those images are posted across all of our platforms, theirs and ours. And it's been pretty much like free advertising for us. I mean, to partner with somebody and then they post our pictures and our name out there, it's really beneficial. And you just network and make your contacts that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, why don't we take a pause there? Ian, you want to turn to audience questions?
Yeah, so a lot of really good questions. So Hannah, Christina, Geno, thank you all three so much. I've watched all of you actually from the very beginning. So for me to see the development and the growth in relatively short period of time is just amazing. So congratulations to all of you. So get to some of the questions. This is a two-part question probably for all of you. So it's how do you handle, how do you split duties, and then how do you handle disagreements with your co-founder? And to the extent you both have co-founders, we'll start with that.
Ooh, I guess I'll take that one there. No, but on a serious note though, so if you're at whoever asked that question, if you're in that situation, then what I'd say is weigh the dynamic of the argument, or the disagreement, I should say, firstly, and then number one, definitely be direct with it, but consider all angles of the situation. Check yourself first, make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, to make sure you're not speaking or overlooking any aspect of the disagreement. But also go to your co-founder and say to them, why are you not doing these things, or why are you doing these things, and just ask them why. So for example, if I'm trying to think, okay, so when me and my co-founder, my original co-founder, split, there were very subtle signs leading up to him kind of drifting away from the team. I could tell he was sort of trying to change the direction of the company. The intentions behind the decisions that he was making kind of seemed a bit self-decided upon. He didn't really consult to us as much. So I just came to the point. I just asked him. I said, hey, I'll call him John. I said, hey, John, what's going on? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is happening. So why are you making these decisions on your own? Because if this continues, this is not going to work out. And I'll always cap it with that, like, because if you know that if this continues, it's not going to work out. And that kind of puts the bug in their ear. But it also gives them a way to kind of reconcile, or like respond, and defend themselves a little bit. That's what's worked for me. If you can get in before that situation actually pops up, I say it comes down to company culture. And that's what I feel like we do a really, really good job with here at Study, especially the second time around. That's really something that I learned is I want people to actually enjoy working here every day, and we're very transparent. I CC I CC almost everybody in my emails that are important and that are referring to the entire team. And if I don't CC them, we have weekly or nightly, meetings where we touch upon, okay, what have we all done today? What progress have we made? Things of those sorts. So we're all on the same page. Everything's fully transparent. And that way, nothing should be coming out of left field, because everyone should be in the loop in some way, shape, or form. So if you can avoid it beforehand, focus on company culture. Cultivate a healthy workplace, a healthy work environment. If you're already in it, it sucks, but it is very common. Actually, most startups go through that at some point. So just be direct.
Christina, Hannah, how do you divide duties, and then to the extent maybe strategically or somewhere else that you guys may not agree, how do you resolve that?
Well, I think it comes to Christina and I are super good friends. We started our relationship off as best friends before we started a business together. So we have this space where we can be very direct and blunt and honest with each other. And sometimes we're probably too blunt with each other. But we've also grown up in a environment where in the equestrian community, if you do something wrong, you need to fix it. X, Y, and Z. Your trainers are usually a little stern. So you kind of get used to the bluntness, and I think that's where our personality comes with each other. But we're also incredibly transparent, like Geno was saying. Christina and I also have a lot of trust in each other and trust in what we're going to do with this company, and we love it both endlessly. And at the end of the day, we make sure that we're both on the same page before a big decision. But I think Tina might be able to touch a little bit on it too.
Yeah, I think that we know each other's strengths really well. If one of us is dealing with something else going on, the other one can kind of pick up, and vice versa. But also big decisions, we always come to each other and have to agree on it together. Some of the smaller day-to-day things, we trust each other to make those decisions without having to consult on every little detail. And if it is that small of a detail, if we didn't totally agree with it, or we'd like to tweak it a little bit, it's easy to go back and be like, hey, I love your idea, but let's play off of it and let's do it this way. And you can really grow together doing that. Also, you need to learn to respect each other and each other's way of thinking and doing things. I think that's key. So being able to have those conversations, or even asking each other for help. I mean, know your weaknesses and your strengths. So if I'm not as great doing something on graphic design as Hannah is, I can always ask her to help me or take over that part of the project, and then we continue forward from there.
Great insights. So another question for both of you. You mentioned that you were being young entrepreneurs, you weren't taken seriously. oftentimes you hear about women entrepreneurs not being taken seriously. So you sort of had two initial hurdles to overcome. Talk about how you overcame that. And Geno, for you, also a young entrepreneur and entrepreneur of color. So I'm going to sort of riff off that a little bit. So to hear from all of you on that.
Yeah, sure thing. And that's actually, yeah, that's a huge point. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the game. I always, it's sad to say that. It's really sad to say that, but it's also what drove me. It kind of I had a huge chip on my shoulder moving forward, because of that. I knew people were going to pay attention to me, for better or worse, people were going to pay attention to me because of who I was and what I looked like, so I could look at that and use it as a crutch, or I could use it to my advantage. So I just really I really made it a point to figure out ways to stand out in audiences. It was extra important for me to be confident going into certain rooms where I know I'm the only person who looks like me. And I think Christina and Hannah hit on that as well, about, attending different trade shows and, speaking to different partners and things of that sort. It was very similar in that regard. But in that same breath, because I just stayed on that path, I ended up coming across different folks who also looked like me and folks who didn't look like me who really just wanted to help, so I think it's a great way to make kind of lemonade out of lemons in that sense, but it's an advantage if you see it as an advantage.
Great. Hannah, Christina, for being both women entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think that at the beginning, I know that I had to learn to be comfortable sharing what I wanted to do. I definitely felt like, oh, they might judge me for having such a big idea or such big goals or something like that. They might not think I can get there. And I think also that Hannah and I have partnered together has really helped because we push each other. And also the people that are putting you down or think like, oh, you can't do that, you have to really think about what they bring into your life and what they bring into your circle and things. So maybe don't take those opinions so seriously. I know that's easier said than done for sure, but you have to be able to really consider, is this person have valuable knowledge? They've been maybe in this industry, or are they just speaking their opinion because they're bored and have nothing else to do? So if it's somebody that you respect and has been there, done that, then, and they're expressing their concerns, I would take that more seriously for sure. But I think you just need to know what you want and also believe in yourself.
I think kind of for myself going off that, being a young entrepreneur, I think there were a lot of learning curves and hurdles that Christina and I both had to go over. We were both in college and young college students at the time when we first started. So we didn't really know much. Like we built our own website. We didn't know what a pattern was. We didn't know the difference between a design and a pattern, and just like little things in the process that you have to go through before you get a sample made, and how you have to import fabric and import taxes. That was a big one. Just lots of little things that her and I mean, we're still trying to figure everything out. We don't have all the answers. And I think that's been the most exciting and interesting part, is all the crazy learning curves and how much we've had to adapt to be able to get things done and be quick on our feet.
Great. Very specific sales question for you. Where can we find the suits in New Hampshire or Maine?
So if you're up north, we're actually in two surf shops, one in New Jersey and the East Hampton. It's called Kahan's. And then we are at another one called Vic and Vaughan Surf. I can get the links if you guys really want them. That's in New Jersey, but if you guys don't have the ability to drive there, you're welcome to go on our website. It's www.hulyaswim.com, and we ship nationwide and almost worldwide at this point. So yeah.
Great. Geno, question for you. Difference in the ecosystem in Silicon Valley and here, and do you suggest young entrepreneurs go out to Silicon Valley as part of that process?
Um, I want to just outright say no. Um, and I think it's overrated, very much so. I feel like you can execute very much on the East Coast just as much as you can on the West Coast. It's just the West Coast is a lot of it's the hype, you know. The East Coast is getting there. Boston is getting there. You know, DC is getting there. I honestly could argue that it's already there. New York is the same way. So there are plenty of different tech environments where you can execute the same thing and actually may be better off there because the competition may be slimmer. So especially with a socially driven company such as Study, Silicon Valley was cool, you know, but at the end of the day, they're very techie. They're very results driven. And when raising money from VCs, it's a different, you know, crowd. And especially selling to companies is a different crowd. They approach it differently. And on the East Coast, it may be a better opportunity to, be a big fish in a little pond versus being a small fish in a big pond. In that sense. So I almost want to say no, but I mean, of course, opportunity is opportunity, right? So I mean, it's still a valley, you know, everyone likes it to an extent.
Great. Question for Hannah, Christina. This person has a small line of eco sort of upscale clothing or rescaled clothing, and they want to know how you sold initially. So did you put it in stores and then get paid only if it sold, or did you get people to actually buy them? How did you do those first sales in retail?
So we first started selling on our website, but even before we did that, we launched all of our social media platforms. That was one of the first things we did, and just started creating a little bit of a buzz on social media. We were already advertising before we had our product in hand. We had samples, so we were able to take pictures and photographs of things to have content, and we just kept producing content. So by the time that we were able to go live on our website, that we already did all that work beforehand, you know. We wouldn't have to kind of sit around and wait after going live on the website. It just started off right away. And it's not fast right away or anything like that. We definitely had to continue growing the buzz and everything. And now just recently we are starting to do a lot more wholesale than we were before. So we've seen that surf shops and different companies we think that they wait to see if it's really going to take off or something before they commit to placing a large order. So I think that they've seen our presence on social media now, and other people that have worn it, they are now wanting to get involved as well.
Cool. And just remind me, there's friends of mine who spoke at our very first speaker series almost 5 years ago that actually run a surf shop in Rye called Summer Sessions. So remind me and I'll try to connect you guys to see if we can get them on the seashore.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See, you never know where you can make a connection.
Yeah.
It's true. Even at the E-Center.
Yeah.
So Geno, question for you, broader, which is in your long view, so this person loved what you're doing. In your long vision, do you have a mechanism to follow up with employees and companies to see what their experience was like as part of the full cycle?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we're still being that we're a startup, you know, we're still kind of ironing out what that mechanism is going to be long term. But we are very emphatic on making sure that we stay in touch with our clients. I email almost all of our clients every day, you know, so we're very in the loop on that. And they know, I just make it very known that they can come to me for anything. We collect feedback in that sense. Going into sales meetings, everybody on my team has a script. and we have a series of questions that we ask, and then that turns into, after a month of sales calls, we look up and we have 50 fully filled out, notes of feedback from companies and prospects and things of those sorts, and also candidates as well, because we hop on the phone with candidates and talk with them too. And then from there, we just kind of evaluate that, figure out what we're doing right, what we're not doing right, and make those changes. But that's what works for us right now as far as a mechanism. Long term, of course, we can bring in some customer support folks, after the fundraise and pay them a couple dollars, and they can evaluate all of those hundreds of pages of notes and, let us know what those trends look like. But
I think it's also employee-based, like where employees, once they got on board, was it a culture and environment that worked for them? So I think it was as much on the employee side.
Yeah, and thanks. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so for employees, yeah, we stay in touch with our candidates all the way through. Um, you know, After a candidate gets there, we will ask the candidate, how is that experience going for you a month in? Or how's that experience? What is the workplace like? Is it what you thought it was going to be? Things of those sorts. And really, just understanding what their inside view of the company is. And that's something that, we're getting to at this point, because when right now we're collecting early sales, really working with these clients closely. And then when our candidates get there, that's something that we'll have a tool to be able to follow up with automatically through the software. But yeah, we're very in touch with everyone that we work with. We just want to emphasize that culture fit with candidates and companies.
Okay. And you mentioned venture capital. So a couple questions actually about that. So raising money from investors is not right for every company. How did you decide that this is the right time, and what type of funding? And to the extent, Hannah and Christina, that applies to you as well.
Yeah. So I'll shed light on that briefly. So I was fortunate enough to have advisors like the E-Center, number one, and also other, organizations. So I went through an accelerator called Camelback Ventures, and they have amazing contacts through their entire network. And we just can send emails to different investors, we can hit up different folks and just set up mock pitches, after we built our deck, I'll send a couple emails, a couple VCs who are also, friends in my network, and I'll say, hey, you mind if I take you through my mock pitch? And they told me, before, they said, yeah, I wouldn't invest in you. You don't have enough revenue. Your ARR is too small. I only invest in companies who are 200 to 250K at least in annual recurring revenue, and take this slide out or change this text. I don't like it, the way it resonates with me, like very minute things. But from the E-Center all the way up to now, I just really lean on those networks, and it's been helpful, even with the Holloway compensation, SVIC, those things at UNH, just leaning on people who know what they're talking about, such as yourself, Ian, and other folks at the E-Center. So, yeah, that's what I say to that.
Again, for Christina, Hannah, you have a lot of partners for the material and the sourcing and to the manufacturing. How did you find your partners, and how do you manage them?
Christina actually did a lot of research, and she found our original partners that we went with the ones in Bali. And we were actually at Surf Expo when we were approached by our current manufacturers, and it was at the end of the day, we were really tired, and we were like, we kind of were just like, okay, we'll come by tomorrow. And Christina and I were like, we're not going to go by tomorrow. And I ended up was walking around the trade show, checking everything out. And I just happened to pass by their booth, and they recognized me because I had a Julia shirt on. They stopped me and pulled me in. They're like, come talk to me for 20 minutes. And man, did they have a really good sales pitch, because they had me convinced I had like a goodie bag with like fabric samples and stuff. And I came back to our booth. I was like, you got to go talk to them, Christina. And she was like, yeah, what? So it was kind of like the first one, we did a lot of research. The second one was kind of more just luck on our part. We were in the right time at the right place. But I think in terms of like managing it, Christina and I split the work a little bit. For example, like we have a wholesale client, but I'm going out of town and I need help with it and like finishing the deal. So I told Christina, I was like, I need to turn it over to you. So we have a very, like Geno was saying, like we're able to lean on each other, and instead of like leaning on other employees, we do have a team of interns, and we have somebody who helps us with PR. So we have a little team, and they're amazing. They work so hard for us. We love them and we love what they do. But I think the biggest part is her and I, we get to lean on each other and use each other as support.
Great. Another, Hannah, Christina, you mentioned a recent focus on sustainability in your industry. Do you see that happening across the board in other industries as well?
Definitely. I think it's almost like a trend now. Everyone's doing it, which is great, but it is a little hard to compete against when the big name brands are deciding to trade over. It can squash out the smaller ones that are just trying to get into the industry. We definitely encourage it when people ask us that question all the time. How do we feel about other brands doing the same thing? We're always here to encourage it. I mean, the more people that can do something sustainable, I think it's better for the environment. But also, we're in the time of change right now. So right now is when everybody needs to be educated and try to change the way we live and everything, because we're not going to have forever to make that change. So I think it's really amazing how many companies are making an effort to switch or making an effort to educate people. So it's really exciting time.
So time for a few more questions. We're going to try to wrap up by 7:30. So all of you are obviously growing your companies. How do you actually at the same time find time to innovate, to create new products and services as you're still growing the main initial effort?
I kind of have an answer off the top of my head, so I'll just jump in. I think for Christina and I, since our passion is so stemmed from the ocean, I think our ideas and our creativity comes directly from being in the water and diving and being able to see that, like, the underwater world that not everybody gets to see, and being able to share that with our friends, and and also seeing the destruction of debris and the bleaching of coral and the plastic and the debris on the reefs, and doing dives against debris together as well. It brings a lot of inspiration to what we want to do and how we can evolve. Also, a lot of our ideas come directly from our dives, like animals we want to do prints after, and things like that, I guess, on that line of sense.
Geno, how do you innovate at the same time you're sort of focused on the core business?
Because we have a very we're very emphatic on learning throughout everything that we do. We never shut out any potential pivots or any ways to unroll new solutions for our clients. So, for example, we had no idea we were going to start offering DEI consulting and training to our clients. But because the way that we go into our conversations is from a stance of, let me ask you questions and learn what you're looking for. It turned out that was a huge commonality that people were bringing up. I would get the question directly, how, like, can you help me build a diverse workforce? I don't know where to start, because a lot of these folks running companies are white, are men, and they've never been in that situation. So they genuinely want to know, so that's something that surfaced for us as a potential new solution just last week, so we went out and started finding a DEI coach, and we're working on that aspect of it. And also with the training of our candidates in our platform, they can be technically adept, they pass the screening quiz, but how do you know they can actually have a conversation, so maybe that personal touch from a career coach or a career consultant helps them develop that. Maybe they need more than just a software library, so that's what I say. We're just the stance that we take as an organization is just learning first, and it's paying off in that regard with regards to unrolling new solutions and things of that sort.
Yeah, and I heard Christina, I think you said it too, where it's the continual process of listening to your customers. So whether it's the for you is the suit inside the wetsuit, but listening to your customers, and whether it's in the water, Hannah, or your just listening for feedback. And sometimes the best innovations come from those who use it every day. And Geno, obviously you're doing that. You created a product to meet a need that your customers talked about. So we have time for 2 more questions. I'm going to combine these together because it's sort of the yin and the yang. So one is, obviously being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. So how do you stay motivated? And then have you ever just said you didn't want to do the risk and take a regular job?
I guess for me, I would say, how do I handle the roller coaster? I kind of really use diving as my outlet. I'll have days like I try to utilize, I live in Florida, so rough weather days, I try to really utilize those and work super, super hard and get all my work done. And then, so when the nice, flat, beautiful, calm days come out, I can go out and enjoy the ocean and enjoy what I love. The nice thing about being an entrepreneur is I can kind of make my own schedule. So I can determine like what hours I want to work and what days I want to work in that sense. And maybe Christina can touch on that too. I don't know.
Yes, so it's definitely a roller coaster. It's ups and downs. And also I've had a job along with this the whole time. So I do work outside of this company to have that supplemental income, it's not a quick ticket all the time. And if you really believe in something and want to take the time, and I do work weekends and I work on the dive boat. So I am doing what I love, but I do have those not normal jobs, because working on a scuba diving boat, I don't think people would think that's normal, but I do have a job outside of the company.
Christina, testament to that. I fully commend your ability to do that, because my co-founder, Vaughan, who actually graduated from UNH as well, is in the exact same situation. So he is a developer at Liberty Mutual as well. And the way that he does it is, he tries to find that balance between, the corporate work and the startup work. And what drives me and him is really that goal of getting him out of Liberty. That's the organization that he works for. So if we can get him out of there, then it means we're doing something good as a startup, so that's kind of what drives us. And what drives me, because frankly, I'm one of the few to say that I've actually never had a 9-to-5 job. And I started entrepreneurship at age 14, and I failed early and learned early. And, it's very much been a roller coaster. But what drove me is the good that I'm doing for other people. So for example, study, those days where it's hard to get out of bed in the morning, in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I really like to sleep in a little bit longer, but there's a candidate on the other side of this line who is dependent on me getting up today. I don't know who, I don't know when, but if I don't get up right now, all I could do is look at myself at the end of the day, so having that social impact behind what we do also helps, for those hard times where it may be hard to keep pushing forward. So yeah.
It's awesome. All right. So this is like the classic wrap-up question. So one piece of advice you think is most important for other young entrepreneurs to hear from all of you, and then we'll wrap up with some thank yous.
All you have to do is keep going. Don't quit. You'll be fine. Like, it's tough. I promise you, you'll be fine. Like, if you shoot, I don't know if anyone here plays basketball or plays a sport, but if you shoot a basketball for 10 years from the same spot, eventually you have to kind of be good at it, right? So just keep going and just believe in yourself. I mean, it sounds, again, cliche, but I mean, it's just really just whether or not you really going to quit or not. So just keep going. Like, it's hard, but fool yourself. Do whatever you have to do. Trick yourself mentally. Like, just do it. You're fine.
I think from me, I would say don't let anyone ever tell you that your dreams are crazy or that they're too big or it's not a big enough industry. You're going to find a way to make it work. And make a company that's amazing. And the most important thing is that you do what you love. That's something that I took from my dad growing up, who I actually think is on this call. So hi, Dad. He always told me that he's 83, he's worked every single day his entire life, but he's never worked a day in his life because he loves what he does. So that's something I've always taken very near and dear to my heart, and do what you love because life's too short. You only have one. Why do something that you're miserable doing? Be happy. Life's too short.
I would say believe in what you're doing, because if you want to do what you're passionate about. If you're absolutely sure and believe in yourself and passionate about what you're doing, you're going to succeed in it. So don't have any doubts. And I know, again, easier said than done, but just keep going. Fake it till you make it if you have to, but don't stop.
Great. Well, I want to first again thank the sponsor, Lake Street Advisors, for this, but and Jerry for another great job of moderating. But Christina, Geno, Hannah, like just phenomenal stories. I said before, I love watching your journey, and for you to be able to give back and share the stories, and hopefully many online listening to this will be inspired or be willing to take some of those initial steps, and whether that's through the e-center or on their own, it's fantastic. So I wanted to thank you all for that. And if I could just ask everybody to unmute, this is my new thing. So unmute yourself so that everybody actually can hear the applause. It's the one thing we try to do. So thank everybody for coming. Great. Thank you all again. Have a good rest of the fall, and we'll all be in touch soon.
Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Ian.
having us.
Thanks, Ian.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.